Welcome to the first video of section 4. We're going to start learning about the graphs of sine and cosine and possibly look at some applications of them as well. We're going to take just a couple notes for review to start off. We've been using this quite a while already, but maybe this is the first time that we've actually kind of jotted it down. I guess the first thing I want you to remember is that sine is related to the y value in that quadrant, especially going around the unit circle. Cosine is going to be related to the x value, and tangent is a fraction, that's y over x. And so if we're using that, we can pretty easily figure out in the quadrant, in each quadrant, what the sign of sine, cosine, and tangent should be. So in the first quadrant, pretty easy, they're all positive. That is a plus symbol, there we go. In the second quadrant, sine will stay positive. The x values here are negative, so cosine has to be negative. And the ratio that's created by this would also be negative, so tangent is negative. In the third quadrant, both sine and cosine, x and y and x I should say, are negative. But that means that tangent, the fraction created by them, would be positive. And in the fourth quadrant, sine is negative because y is negative there. Cosine is positive, and tangent would be negative. That's just a handy reference to have for a lot of the questions that we're dealing with here. The rest of this video, I think it's going to be hopefully a shorter video, is simply going to be related to what do the graphs of sine and cosine look like. And so to do that, first of all, we are going to graph these equations here eventually. But to do that, I'm going to show you some things on Sketchpad. So this is something I just kind of have created. I use it as a visual demonstration. This is the unit circle right here. And what the sine function does is it takes the input value of our angle measure, and it then creates the output of whatever sine is for that angle measure. So if we have the unit circle right here, what I want to do is I want to think about the angle that's created right in this part as the point moves up. I want to think about the angle measure. And then I want to think about, at that angle measure, what's the y value that's being created. I'm going to start graphing right here because this is the angle measure of 0. Here's the angle measure of pi over 2, of pi, of 3 pi over 2, all the way to 2 pi, which would be a complete revolution. So I'm going to just graph some of this by hand just to show you how we would think through this. When I have an angle measure of 0, my point is right here and the y value there is 0. So the first thing I would graph here is that point. My angle measure of 0 creates a sine value or a y value of 0. At pi over 2 is 90 degrees, so this point's going to move up to here, and the y value there is 1. So at pi over 2 I should have a point right there. At pi, 180 degrees, I'm all the way down here. And so now my y value is back down to 0. Okay, at 3 pi over 2, that's pointing straight down. The y value there is negative 1. And then at 2 pi, kind of back to where we started, I'd be back at a y value of 0. So you see it's going to go up, go down for a while, then go up. I will just animate this. You see that it's kind of comparing the angle measure to the y values that you're seeing as we go around the unit circle, doing all the things in the middle. And so we have this kind of nice gradual change in the function. So this is one cycle of our sine function. Kind of nice. We'll be using this quite a bit, especially over the next few years. You will get very used to this particular function. So I'll stop that, erase what I wrote down, and we're going to copy this down on our notes a second. Let's see, my mouse, there we go. Okay, so if we're going to actually graph our sine function here, I often just like to write a few markers down first. So this would be 2 pi. That means halfway would be pi. This would be pi over 2. This would be 3 pi over 2. Okay, so if you think about it this way, good to review fractions. This is 1 pi over 2. This would be 2 pi over 2, but that reduces to pi. This is 3 pi over 2. This is 4 pi over 2, which reduces to 2 pi. So just kind of think of, yep, they are nice gradual steps. I'm also going to input this as my y value of 1 and this as my y value of -1, and then just graph a few points. So let me switch colors here. So this was at 0, this one was at 1, back to 0, down to -1, up to 0, and then we just connect them in a nice gradual turn. Okay, there we have our graph of sine. It will continue with this pattern to the left and to the right. Now let's think about what happens with cosine. So going back to Sketchpad a second. Sketchpad is going to, let's see if I drop that back and clear, there we go. Okay, cosine is going to be comparing the angle measure. The input will still be the angle measure, but now it's going to graph the output being the x value as we go around this point, or go around the circle. So as I start at 0 degrees, that's pointing right directly to the right. The x value there is 1. So in this case, my first point is going to be right up here. When my angle measure was 0, remember x-axis is the angle measure. When my angle measure is 0, the output, the x value on the unit circle is actually 1. At pi over 2, as this point goes up the unit circle and gets to 90 degrees, there the x value is 0. At pi, when my angle measure is pi, that is 180 degrees. Now on the unit circle, my x value is -1. At 3 pi over 2, or straight down, my x value was 0 again. And then at 2 pi, that x value goes back to 1. Okay, so let's see what happens here as I animate. Okay, you're going to see some similarities to sine. It's really just sine that has been kind of translated left or right a little bit. So a lot of similarities in the types of graphs here, just a different starting point. We'll stop that again. We'll erase the traces here. Go back to, whoops. There we go. Let's graph cosine now. So I'll go through the same steps. Kind of mark things up here a little bit. If this is 2 pi, that means this is pi. Half of that would be pi over 2. And right in the middle here is 3 pi over 2. Up here will be +1. Down here is -1. Okay, we graph a few important points again. In this case, we start at +1, then to 0, then to -1, then back to 0, then to +1. And there are some gradual curves there, but that would kind of be your basic graph of cosine. It's not perfect, it's not nice and neat, but you get the general idea. Okay, we'll stop there and do some more mathy application problems with this in our next video.